In tonight's episode of Terrible Tech, Paul was having some hammer binding issues, so he asked me to just take a look at it and see if I could get it going again. First thing we're going to take a look at is the front stop on the trigger. We can see it is a stainless little stop at the front of the trigger. This is just probably the most amazing Dye Autococker of this generation that I've seen. This anodizing is just killer. I believe that the anodizing was done by PK Selective and was also done on some adrenaline guns and ANS guns, and it just looks amazing. So I found that the main problem was the hammer binding, so I was going to change the hammer out, but I just kind of looked around at a couple other things and fixed a couple other little small problems and did some adjustments. As I was taking it apart, I found that the hammer wasn't a very good fit, so I changed the hammer out for this one, but I started screwing the lug from the other hammer into this one, and it cracked into pieces, so it wasn't ideal. So I ended up going with a completely different hammer and lug. I've never seen a hammer lug crack like this, so I wanted to get it on video, show that it does happen. Tim actually thought that it might have been from the steel not being hardened properly. So here's a look at the bolt on Paul's Dye Autococker, and this is a twist release bolt, and it is aluminum, and from being used it actually does have a significant amount of wear. The O-rings on it were pretty flat and dry, and they kind of broke apart when I started taking them apart. So the next thing I want to show is a method that I've talked about before, and it's actually using a piece of a zip tie to clamp down on something with a vice grip. So in this example, I'm actually cutting the zip tie into a small piece, and I'm bending it, and then once it's bent, I'm able to close down the vice grip around it, and we can see that it kind of fits perfectly in the mouth of the vice grip. And once I have it like this, and I make sure that it's kind of towards the end of the vice grip, I can kind of slip it over whatever I need to, and then tighten the vice grip down and then close it up. And in this case, I'm doing it over the ram shaft. You want to be really careful that you don't get a marked up ram shaft, because it could just cause other issues. And in this example, I'm actually adding a little bit of length to Paul's pump arm here so that his back block doesn't slap against the body. Then I can also have about a paper thin space between the back block and the body. Now we're looking at the caulking rod, and there wasn't an Allen screw on this caulking rod, and when I tried to take it out, the collar just started unscrewing from the shaft. So this is another example where I can just easily use the vice grips with the zip tie in it and remove the caulking rod. In this example, I just threw another caulking rod on. So we can just tighten the back screw on the vice grips right down to the right spot, and then we can close it the rest of the way. And we can see that I can just give it a little turn, loosens up the caulking rod. Not super obvious, but it did loosen it up enough for me to unscrew. There we can see that the new caulking rod easily caulks and the trigger releases it. Another thing I want to do is just check the output pressure of Paul's AKA inline regulator. Just make sure it's around 350 psi, which is what I usually set all my caulkers and snipers at, and make sure that it's also holding pressure consistently at 350 or right in the same spot wherever that is. So here we can see that it is holding pressure consistently, which is great, right around 350. So I knew that it would hold pressure all day, and here we go. Look at that, it actually shoots.